credit for being more creative than Canelo, where when Canelo tested positive, all they said was that he got it from tainted meat. This is wild boar, baby. You don't hear wild boar too often. You know what I mean?
Specifically, uncastrated wild boar.
Uncastrated. even worse.
Oh, well, you didn't say he was uncastrated. Then, of course, it was tainted.
Oh, my God. Uncastrated. Oh, my. I mean, I don't. You know what? I'm going to leave that alone. All I can tell you is it's really, you're going to the really out there to those places where, you know, Captain Kirk and Star Trek went to. You know what I mean? You're going out there. You're going out there, you know, to new frontiers. Wild boar, the creative son of a guns. Really, I got to give him credit. Wild, uncastrated, wild boar. All right. You know, I used to say when I heard it from Canelo, I said, hey, with all that money, could you just go buy Kobe beef? You know what I mean? You got to be eating tainted hamburgers, you know. But it's been something that was a test that just came up after this last fight, or after the first fight that they had. It was back in 2015. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't use something back there. It doesn't mean that. We don't know. I mean, how are you going to prove it at this point? When there's smoke, sometimes there is fire. There's no doubt about that. And it sounds fishy that, you know, that this guy, you know, with the whole thing that he's going to be paid 25,000 pounds, which is equivalent to about 30,000 U.S. money, to say that he ate wild boar as a you know, excuse for testing positive in his area. So, listen, again, how does it matter? It was in 2015. Let's put things in perspective. Now, I'm going to be on both sides again. While the people saying it matters that it showed a precedent that he was ready to cheat. Yes, if it's true. If he actually, but we don't know. We can't prove it. But it could show it's an ability or an allowance of himself to use such things. And if you do it once, you could be trying to do it again. Yeah, that's true. If we knew for a fact that back in 2015 he actually used this. The other thing I'll say, and again, I'll qualify it by again saying there's nothing to prove that there was anything unwarranted, illegal, you know, suspicious in this fight. Now, listen, does boxing have the most comprehensive drug testing? You can speak to this probably better than most people. No. Do they have the most? No, because they do it at a time and then they stop doing it. At the time that they do it, the testing, you could have been on cycles to get an advantage and then stop before the testing starts.
100%.
So listen, I'd rather have something than nothing. I'm glad that we do have VADA, that we do have some place to do some testing. But again, it's voluntary. It's voluntary. I mean, both fighters have to agree to it. I mean, look, as long as we're on this, let's pull the whole curtain back, right? Because it's about getting things and talking about things that other people don't talk about, that we talk about, and put it all out there. You know, some of the great fighters like Pacquiao, great, and I love Pacquiao. I love the human being he is. I love what he's done. I love everything about him, everything. But if my memory serves me correctly, I believe for the Thurman fight, he refused to be tested. It's punishment in place to enforce it. Unless you have that, like the Olympics, you get caught, you're out. You're out. But in boxing, even with the people that have gotten caught, they're fighting again and getting big contracts. The point I'm making is, I think many people in this sport drugging, if you want to just put that word out there, or what PED, whatever the hell you want to call it. I think they're cheating. I think there's a lot of them out there, and the fighters know it. The fighters will be the first one. These honest fighters, they'll be the first one to tell you.
Legendary trainer Teddy Atlas finally talks about Tyson Fury and the farmer boar, wild boar allegations. Ooh, we gonna talk about it. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. This is going to be another good video, and before I get started, let me do my shameless plug. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It does help the channel when you guys click on that link. Now, with all that's going around the world with the Rona situation, I'm in California, so we're on a lockdown. They advise everybody to stay at home unless you absolutely need like medical care or, you know, have to get something at the grocery store. You know, some stores, only the necessity stores are open. So if you need something to do, you can click on my link and sign up for ESPN Plus. They got a ton of docu-series and documentaries. I know boxing and UFC kind of on hiatus right now, but they have some original programming and classic fights and whatnot to keep you busy. If you want, you can get ESPN Plus as a standalone app, or you can bundle it, ESPN Plus and Hulu and Disney Plus, and that just like 3x's the amount of content that you can get. I personally have all three and I use them. It's $12.99 for all three apps, ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu. And if you like to sign up, click on that link, you know, get you some quarantine content. And it helps the channel when you guys click on that link. Now, we got to talk about it. Teddy Atlas, he has on his show / podcast, which the link is in the description. You know, I always got to give credit. I checked him out and seen what he had to say. He finally talked about the Tyson Fury fiascos and scandals, and it's a pretty good video. You know, it's a pretty good video. In fact, I felt that Tyson Fury content sounded eerily similar to my content, you know, what he was saying in the video. However, there were a couple of marked differences, which I'll talk about in my video. But all in all, shout out to Teddy Atlas. I enjoyed it. It was a good listen. And I want you guys to click on it, give him some views on the video, and you know, you can hear it verbatim, because I didn't write down the quotes this time and stuff like that. And you know, this whole Tyson Fury fiasco and scandal and Glovegate and Farmergate, it's funny because it seems like new media is the one leading the charge, with some other people like Young Pharaoh and whatnot talking about this. Old media refuses to talk about this, but we talked about it so much. We are the streets, and you know, we control the narrative. So we made this issue something you couldn't just turn away from. You can't just sweep under the rug. And I know that's what they intended. That's why every time I made a video, they say, oh, another Tyson Fury video, or you're still talking. Yes, on my channel, I'm going to talk about everything that I want to talk about within boxing and within the community guidelines of YouTube. We not breaking no hearts, or we breaking hearts, old media's heart, but you know, we're not doing anything that goes against the code of conduct or ethics or, you know, slander. I'm just talking boxing and giving you my opinion. So I give everybody the opportunity to know what the content is about by the metadata that I leave, which I take pride in. You know, try to have somewhat of a description. You definitely get a title. It's mandatory. It's required that you have a title for every single video. So don't ask me, oh, another Tyson Fury video. You know, that's just a waste of your time. You'll probably just get blocked, because I know what they're doing. They're trying to scare you, knock you off your pivot, because you're talking and making a ruckus, and they want to be able to just sweep it under the rug. Because at this point, Tyson Fury has a lot of things that are drawing questions from the fans that look suspect, that look sneaky, that look shady, that look underhanded, you know, so they want you to just shut up about it. But that's not what we do over here at New Media. Now, Teddy Atlas talked about it. You guys heard some of the clips. Again, listen to it in its entirety. And, you know, I always implore you guys and empower you guys. Don't just take my word for it, or, you know I have a voice in this boxing community, but, you know, don't just listen to what I have to say and run with it and just take my word for it, even though I'm not lying to you guys. And I'm giving you my honest assessment, my honest opinion, and as much detail as possible. But just listen to it and see how you see. That's the difference between new media and old media, right? New media empowers the fans. We're truth seekers. We're realists. We just want the truth. So when it comes to Tyson Fury, we want an investigation based on all the suspicious behaviors, and some of it's irrefutable. You know, you could clearly see his glove is not on secure. You know, that's not even up for debate. You could look at the laces on one glove and it looks extremely loose and widened out, and you see his hand moving. You see tape coming at the bottom of only the left hand. I mean, these aren't things if you have a pair of eyes, unless you're Stevie Wonder, and even then Stevie Wonder could probably see this. You see what I'm saying? So that's what it is. We're truth seekers. And before I get started, because I'm going to talk about Teddy Atlas, let me explain this new media, old media thing quickly, because I had a fan. He said, "Hey man, I love your channel." He sent me a message. I forgot what it was on, because you know I'm heavy on social media and known or whatever. So he sent me a message either in the comments or Twitter, Instagram, something. Maybe it was a DM. And he said, "Hey man, I love your stuff, but am I old media?" He said, "Because I'm an older gentleman. You know, I've been watching boxing for 45, 50 years. You know what I'm saying?" And he said, "Does that make me old media? Because I agree with like most of what you say in the video. So I'm not sure what is, like, he wasn't sure what the old media was." Listen, old media has less to do with your actual age. Like, we don't care what age you are. It's just you have to be a truth seeker. So the reason it's called old media is because this was the media and the narratives that they used to push with agendas prior to me and new media coming through. You see what I'm saying? New media made it cool and popular to get to the bottom of things, really talk this boxing talk from a fair and just positioning, you know, regardless of your gender, race, creed, ethnicity, you know. And we didn't buy into the hype of, you know, just hyped up fighters and shit on black fighters, things like that. Minorities, you know, just fighters that weren't getting a fair shake. So we stepped in the game and we improvised and, you know, ultimately changed the game. So it has nothing to do with how old you are. You can be 108 years old and watch the channel and still be new media, because it's all about, do you want the truth? Do you want what's best for boxing? If you can check those boxes, then, you know, you're more in the lane of new media. If you're intelligent with your thought process, you can explain why you're not making rash decisions and comments, you know, berating people and, you know, overall not using your brain and intelligence when it comes to these situations, because you're a beta male and you're making it's an emotional response. So I just want to clear that up, because I'm going to talk about this Teddy Atlas thing, and he was actually saying a lot of new media stuff. It actually, if I want you guys to listen to it so you could tell me what you think, you know, but from my opinion, listening to it, he sounded like me. He was saying a lot of the same exact stuff. He talked about Pacquiao, which you guys heard. He said, Pacquiao, how come he didn't want drug testing for the Keith Thurman fight? It's up to my promoter. And he was like, I love Pacquiao, but I'm just keeping it real. And he said, I'm saying what nobody else was saying. And I disagree with them, because I'm one of the founding fathers talking about this Tyson Fury stuff. I was one of the original people. So there was a couple things he said that I disagree with, like when he says, I'm willing to talk about the things that other people aren't. I disagree, because new media, we're the ones on the front line, and we're the ones that made the Tyson Fury Glove-Gate and Boargate and Farmer-Gate and all this stuff. We're the ones that made it hot and then brought a light to it, because we know old media wasn't doing it. We know ESPN wasn't doing it. You know, big boxes and big outlets weren't doing it. You know, the old school, you know, old media big outlets. So I disagree with him saying that, oh, we're the only ones doing it, because we're the first ones to do it. We're always on the front line of battle talking about what's right for boxing. But I will say I do appreciate Teddy Atlas because he works for ESPN Plus. They pulled him from kind of the live broadcasts and whatnot, and like, you know, live commentary, like blow by blow or whatever they call it, commentary. For whatever reason, I don't know exactly what happened, but on the boxing commentary, you don't see him in that role, but he still works for the company, and he still spoke his mind. He talked about Pacquiao's situation. He talked about Gerald Big Baby Miller, who just signed to Top Rank, which is on ESPN and stuff like that. So I think he did a pretty good job. There were a couple discrepancies. The only discrepancy, like I said, a lot of it sounded like me. If you really listen to it, he said with this Tyson Fury thing, it sounds fishy. It does sound, you know, basically plausible, and I'm paraphrasing here. He says it sounds plausible and it does sound fishy. He said, I got to give it to these guys. Wild boar from an uncastrated male. You know, that's pretty specific, and that sounds wild. I got to give it to them for their creativity, you know. But the only thing that Teddy Atlas was doing that to me is not how I would handle the situation, and to me is not all the way new media, is he was playing both sides of the fence, and he was playing devil's advocate. And in my opinion, you got to just call it what it is and less of that. Like he said, he was literally sounding like me. He was saying like, oh, I don't care what people think, I'm willing to go there. He says, I'm doing CSI forensics type of work here. And what did I tell you on my channel? I said, man, I'm looking into this. I'm doing it my own investigation, Young Forensic Files. That's literally what I said, and then you'll hear Teddy Atlas say that. But the only thing where I feel like we kind of differ in a major way is Teddy Atlas was still trying to play devil's advocate. Like he was saying a lot of good points, but then he was purposely trying to look at the other side. And this is going to sound weird. In boxing, not everything is going to be 50-50 equal. You see what I'm saying? And some people try their best because they don't want to get pegged as biased or racist or have something, you know, because fans, if you say something that the fans do not want to hear or do not like, then sometimes fans will get angry oftentimes because it's an emotional response. But you notice with my channel, a person who's pioneered boxing commentary in this digital space, I have full creative control. And just like Teddy Atlas was saying, which also sounded like me, he said, I have no horses in the race. I'm just, you know, basically keeping it all the way funky, keeping it all the way real. But I'm that for real because he still works for ESPN Plus. And I think that kind of showed up in here because there were moments where he would say some real good stuff. And then he would say, Tyson Fury, man, this sounds fishy. But then he would kind of lay off of it and say, but nothing fishy happened in the last Wilder fight. We have no reason to, and I disagree with that because in the first Wilder fight and the second fight, even though they passed drug tests, whatever drug tests were administered, there was fishy behavior. So, you know, sometimes people get afraid in this boxing space, probably because, you know, he, like I said, he works for ESPN Plus, so he wants to teeter on the edge and on both sides of the fence. But I'm just going to tell you what it is straight up because I really don't have a horse in the race. I'm doing this for boxing. I'm doing what's right for boxing. So I think there were moments where he was saying really good stuff that sound almost identical to what I've been telling you, but then he would back off because he didn't want to drive the point home too much. And I noticed this in boxing. A lot of people are so afraid, like deathly afraid of coming across as super biased. Me, I'm a natural born leader, an Aries. I'm bullheaded. I'm strong-minded. So I don't worry about those things. I'm telling you what I honestly feel. You know, part of it, a lot of it is what we actually can see, data, patterns, history, you know, creating a precedence, you know, just like a fight. You can see how you can see in certain fights, it gets to a 6th round, 7th round, and one guy hasn't done nothing. You know, you have to break that rhythm, and that becomes harder and harder once the fight starts getting away from you. You see what I'm saying? So I use this intuition for some of it, facts, and I put this big pot of gumbo together when it comes to my boxing assessments. But I feel like so many people in this boxing game, they tread ever so slightly and ever so soft because they don't want to drive the point home, because it's in fear of people will think I'm biased if I say something. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care. I'm telling you what I see. I'm telling you what I feel from the bottom of my heart, take it or leave it. And I'm not saying I'm so stubborn where you can't bring up a great point and dissuade me or persuade me to see where you're coming from. But more often than not, in this boxing game, when it comes to boxing talk like this Tyson Fury wild boar, the people who are trying to persuade me and new media and Ego's Army otherwise, they're not coming up with substantial great points, actual reasonable pictures and footage of, comparable. It's not apples and apples what they're doing. So you're not persuading me to see your point of view, because what you're saying has no bearing on what we're talking about. Like, we're talking about Wilder Fury 1 and 2, Tyson Fury looking like he has a history of underhanded cheating, and he's a gypsy. The word gyp, which is, I'm the only one that's talked about this. Look up the word gyp. Some people spell it J-I-P, some people spell it G-Y-P. If you look up the root word gyp, it says to deceive, to cheat, to steal. So this man calls himself the Gypsy King. The literal meaning is the king of cheating. And, I would never just go off of someone's nickname and say, oh, guilty, because your nickname is, the Punisher or this and that. No. But look at the fights. Look at the evidence that is being presented. So that's my only gripe with Teddy Atlas. I think he did a really good job, but there were a couple points where he started on a trend, and it looked like in fear of coming across too biased or I'm giving both sides. He kept mentioning that. Oh, and I love Pacquiao. I love, you know what I'm saying? And it is like he has to try harder so people know he's being unbiased. But like I said, certain things in boxing, it's not about being biased or not biased. It's about what you see. Certain things, like, do we want equality in terms of if you're a Latino fighter, you're a black fighter, you're a white fighter? Those things should be 50-50, absolutely. Because if you're a male, if you're a female, if you have speed, if you have no speed, you should be treated equally. You can't be like, oh, this is a female fight, women's boxing, so we allowed a fighter to cheat like Alejandra Jimenez. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter if you're male or female. You're not allowed to take illegal banned substances and steroids. So you're not allowed to take steroids and juice and take SARMs and androgen receptors and these things for an illegal gain in competition. So in that regard, things are 50-50. But what people forget in boxing, certain things aren't always going to be 50-50, like Tyson Fury. If what he's doing and all the information that is being presented, the evidence being submitted and the case being yielded against Tyson Fury, if that stuff starts to amount, that's not necessarily 50-50. If there's more damaging evidence that looks highly suspicious, he's not saying anything. One of the most outspoken people in boxing has nothing to add to this. And then his promoter is the only one he has two promoters, and only one of promoters has even said anything, and that's Frank Warren. And he wasn't even managing, nor was Bob Arum. He wasn't even managing Tyson Fury at the time that the Martin Carefoot charges were being, presented to Tyson Fury. So it's looking crazy. And in those situations, these things aren't 50-50. That's why on my channel, I don't act like it. If it looks extremely bad, then I'm not going to act like, oh, hey, but what if no one can convince me otherwise, and all of the things are just adding up, and you got sparring partners saying stuff about you. You have a 70-year-old guy from your area, a pig farmer, who's not even in boxing, saying stuff about you. The glove case being all the evidence that we're looking at, then it looks bad. But Teddy Atlas and other people, oftentimes it's like they want to play devil's advocate and be like, oh, but wait, and make things equal and give the equal doubt, but it doesn't. I'm a straight shooter. If O.J. Simpson, in the case he's being tried for with the murder, if he looked like he did it, then that's just what it is. If there's more evidence and it's like, nah, he has some type of involvement in it, and no one can present any information that would lead me to believe that he had absolutely no involvement in it, then I'm gonna feel how I feel. And I just feel like people, they're too conscious of what other people think rather than spitting out what's going on in boxing. It's like you could tell Teddy Atlas by his diatribe and what he's saying. He literally is in the podcast saying that what Pacquiao did was suspicious, what Tyson Fury did was suspicious. He says he knows that there's cheating in boxing. He said he's going to just undress this whole situation. He says, I think a lot of guys are juicing and a lot of guys are covering stuff up and they're doing illegal stuff. He mentioned Gerald Big Baby Miller, things like that. But then he's trying to play devil's advocate and say, oh, but hey, we have no proof of this with Tyson Fury. What do you mean we have no proof? All the evidence of him doing underhanded things and saying weird statements, this is setting a tone or a precedence. If you go to court, the first thing they're going to look at, if you're being charged of a Me Too case, they're going to look at your history. They're going to look at your rap sheet. And then when they find out things that you've done in your past that all involve abuse or getting fired from a job because you were harassing or stalking a coworker that was female, that's not going to look good for you. So why would I pretend that it does? So I think Teddy Atlas was doing a good job, but I think he was playing it a little too safe and trying to hedge his bet. And, it is what it is. But I can at least appreciate the fact that he's at least somebody from ESPN talking about it. These other guys at ESPN, they want to act like it don't even exist. So I like Teddy Atlas, always have, and I at least give him credit for that. But the difference between new media, he was saying a lot of stuff that I say, and you could tell, I feel like this. I feel like if I talk to Teddy Atlas about these same situations off the record, then we would get a different type of conversation. But he still, wants to maintain a neutral perspective. Man, I don't care about none of that. Because if something looks foul and it looks underhanded, then that's just what it is. You're not proving me wrong. All this stuff with Tyson Fury, nobody has explained, like Steve Cunningham just said on his Instagram or his Twitter. He said, we're doing a quarantine and ain't nobody still has come out and explained why Tyson Fury's glove is bending back, things of that sort. So as I gotta take a couple points away from Teddy Atlas's assessment of this, because he was on the right track and then he would backtrack. He'd be like, oh yeah, it sounds extremely fishy and this, but then he would kind of like try to play it safe and hedge his bet by, we don't know, this happened in 2015. None of that matters. It don't matter if it happened in 2015. This is the person we're dealing with. That's what's being established. Are you a cheater? Is there a history of cheating? You see what I'm saying? And when you look at Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and all these cases, none of those cases are from the last year. None of the accusers, I guess you should say, is from the last year. So does he or does he not, in a real world scenario, does Bill Cosby, I would like to put the jello over the pudding with Camille. Oh. Does he go under case for things that happened a long time ago? So why in boxing do people keep saying, oh, but this was in 2015, like get over it? Then no, only in boxing do they tell you to do that. Why for the Me Too, and I'm not saying this is right, but I'm just saying what boxing is requesting from fans would be the equivalent of telling Rose McGowan and all the people who had a Me Too issue with Harvey Weinstein, oh, suck it up, Buttercup, that happened in 2006 and it's 2020. That's not how it works in real time, only in boxing. So again, Teddy Atlas, listen to his interview, his podcast. He said a lot of good stuff, a lot of new media stuff. He was on the right track, but I do feel I don't know if he has a sponsor or maybe his ties to ESPN Plus. He has to tread lightly, and he chose to do that, and he would backtrack. He knows this shit looks suspicious because he was telling you. He said, I got to give it to a wild, uncastrated male boar. I got to give it to him. That's creative. He even said in the podcast that Tyson Fury, he didn't say Tyson Fury, but he says, actually, this is what he said about Tyson Fury later. He said Tyson Fury had his shirt on in the Wilder second fight. He said, so this is for the conspiracy theorists. I'm giving you both sides, so think about this side. He said he left his shirt on, and I criticized him, like, why would you leave your shirt on if you're in great shape? So he must be embarrassed about his shape. And he says, if you recall, in this particular fight, the Wilder 2 fight, he said he took his shirt off, and I'm like, wow, he looks kind of solid. So I was thinking he was probably out of shape because he kept his shirt on, but he looked more solid. So he kind of insinuated if somebody was on something that they would be able to bulk up and weigh more weight and look better at the higher weight than they did at the lower weight. That's what happened with Tyson Fury. Once his shirt came off, he looked actually in a better weight. He looked better weight than he looked in the first Wilder fight. Like the first Wilder fight looked like he had loose skin and he looked a bit flabby and sick, and he weighed less. Now he weighs more, but he actually, as Teddy Atlas mentioned, he looked more solid, right? He was flexing, his arms looked big. He looked like he almost lost weight, but he weighed more weight. So he said that's something to consider. And he said, I know a lot of people, the horns and alarms are going to go off because I said that. They're going to be like, oh, Teddy Atlas. So he was keeping it real, but he was also trying to, kind of play it safe and hedge his bet. But like I said, I can at least appreciate that he's talking about it instead of doing what old media is talking about and just ignoring it and trying to write pro Tyson Fury articles as if this other stuff with Martin Carefoot, the pig farmer, the wild boar, Glovegate is not existing. So respects to Teddy Atlas for this. This is another thing I did notice. His co-host, whoever that dude, he's not as well informed to me when it comes to boxing, because they started talking about Gerald Miller, and see, some people do this to black fighters and they don't even realize it. Some people are intentionally doing it. So I can't say I don't know enough about this dude, but I noticed something he did, right? In this podcast, and you guys listen to what I'm going to say and then go watch it and then see if you pick up that now that I pointed it out. And this is what people do to black fighters. It's like almost fashionable to have a certain approach when it comes to black fighters and black people, black athletes, right? And this is what I noticed his co-host did. He was asked about Gerald Miller, and he was like, yep, he failed. He had multiple drugs in his system. And he immediately jumped on Gerald Miller for failing a drug test and said, and he's just chimed in and said, he failed with EPO and basically had a PED cocktail in his, and just start going in like, man, he had a lot of stuff in his system, boom, boom, boom. But then when Teddy Atlas made a point about Pacquiao refusing to do a drug test, which was actually true during the Keith Thurman fight, then he started coming up with these almost like scapegoats for Pacquiao. He's like, oh yeah, but Pacquiao, he did do some form of testing. The bottom line that Teddy Atlas was making, and then they show you on the screen, is Pacquiao did not do full on, voluntary drug testing, random Olympic style blood and urine testing. So the guy was almost trying to, he demolished Gerald Miller for failing a drug test. But then when a non-black fighter like Pacquiao was brought to the equation, he almost had a backdoor out for Pacquiao, which looks suspicious. It looks suspicious that Pacquiao didn't do full-on VADA testing from all the reports. And he was like, but he did some form of testing through the commission. Okay, but that goes back to Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Mayweather says, I want Pacquiao to do full-on Olympic-style blood and urine test, right? Pacquiao says no. Freddie Roach says no. Freddie Roach, we're just going to let the commission do their job. And Floyd's not our boss, so we'll just, I told Pacquiao, I said my son Pacquiao, and he's saying we're not doing it. The commission gonna do their job. We'll just do whatever the commission tests are. And then Teddy Atlas pointed out, like, that's not the same. That's not the same. That's not the Olympic style blood and urine, because you can juice, cleanse your system, and cycle off of whatever you were on and still pass those tests closer, like, to in competition and, you know, post-fight drug tests, because you cycled off by that point, or you have more of a schedule. That's different than a random blood and urine where they pop up at, you know, a bar mitzvah. They pop up at you and your girl at dinner or something. They just pop up whatever. So that's what Teddy Atlas was making. But I noticed his co-host almost kind of tried to give Pacquiao a way out, but it looked suspicious. That's the point he was making. He was like, oh, but Pacquiao did some form of test. You fought Keith Thurman, and it was highly documented that it wasn't supposed to have regular VADA tests. And, you know, boxing is so crazy and crooked and corrupt where I'm starting to wonder if they're even doing the drug test, because we never see pictures of a lot of these drug tests. Like, we don't actually see, like, the fighter post pictures when VADA's coming. So, you know, we just have to go off of this particular fight had full-on Olympic style blood and urine test anyway. We never see it, you know, like when you're watching the All Access and, you know, these build-up fight, we never see VADA really on those shows. So we have to just assume that they're telling us the truth. But all in all, I think it was a solid job by Teddy Atlas. I at least give him credit, like I've been saying, just for talking about the Tyson Fury thing. But the only difference that I feel like in my presentation in the true new media way is we really bout this and we looking at it. And if it looks shadier than it looks honest, then I'm willing to say that. You see what I'm saying? I'm willing to follow that intuition versus Teddy Atlas. He started, you know, everything. If you listen to what Teddy Atlas said in the podcast, everything he was saying makes it sound like boxing is corrupt, makes it look like the wild boar story was suspect. And he knows that a lot of cheating's going on and cheaters keep coming back because we have no governing body. This is all stuff that I said. You know, cheaters get rewarded with big contracts, and, you know, Margarito cheated with the illegal hand wraps with Mosley, tried to. He definitely did it with Cotto, judging by his face. And then he gets suspended, comes back, and he gets a Pacquiao fight, a title fight at that. So that's just the reality of it. So everything he was saying was pretty dab on, but there was just these little moments in there where I noticed Teddy Atlas kept on pulling back. It kept on pulling back, like he didn't want to come across as too biased. I don't worry about none of that. I don't care what these people are talking about in the comment section, because they're not proving me wrong. So that's Teddy Atlas' response to this whole Tyson Fury fiasco with the wild boar. And, you know, it's just checkmate. This just proves what we've been talking about. And at this point, if you don't think that this fight and Tyson Fury's behavior in the third fight and the Mr. Carefoot's comments about recanting his story needs to be investigated, then at this point you're the problem. Because even with Teddy Atlas playing devil's advocate and looking both ways, you know, to have this like pseudo neutrality, he's still okay with it being looked at because he just said it was shady. But you have people with old media, actual old media, they're telling you don't look at these situations at all. No investigation required. The WBC, some of these commissions, and, you know, they're telling you, and fans, they're saying, oh, no, who cares about all these coincidental things that keep happening with Fury? Don't investigate him anyway. So that tells you what time it is on. But we're not going to stop. We're going to keep talking about this stuff. Let me know what you guys think. If you love what I'm doing, smash the like button. Shout out to Teddy Atlas. Link in the description. If you love what I'm doing, you know what to do. We working.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.